Right, here we go with part 8, which is going to be following on from where I left. Clearly, I'd tried my best in Edinburgh and experienced a whole bunch of good and bad, and I've gone home. So I went back home to Thurso in Caithness and went back to stay with Mum, who not that much had changed really. She was still with her boyfriend, lover, on and off. I think they tried to live together at one point, this chap called Henry, and it was never good enough for her. Henry was going out getting drunk, and Henry was maybe seeing someone else. Henry was maybe having an affair. And we get this chewing gum out. So it was a broken record with Mum, and when I left to go to Edinburgh before I was 20 years old, it was the same shit there. She was seeing Henry, and it was all about Henry, and the sheer selfishness of it all was just mind-boggling, really. She was a broken record, so I'd come home quite broken. I had a room. My bedroom was still there. We lived in a house on a place called Mackay Court. So the family house that we were brought up in, that Dad lived in, that had long gone, and Mum lived in a new house. I had a bedroom, and Mum was sort of happy to help, but let's just say I got back and I was very confused about what to do next. Edinburgh had defeated me and I'd gone back home with Mum. So my next stage in life would be to figure out what I wanted to do. And I got home and I had to apply for benefit because I had no money. So I was on benefit. One time I was out of the house, and Gary still had my phone number. He had the home phone number. He had my mobile number. He spoke to my Mum, and in a very sort of vicious way, he very deliberately told my Mum that I had gone to jail, and that one time I had pawned my father's wedding ring, the wedding ring, which I did, and I bought back. That was true, but it was just, he just did this in a very nasty way. So I came home and my Mum was shouting and screaming at me, "Oh, you've been to jail, blah, blah, blah." And she'd been through all my stuff, and she'd got all these notes out, and found out that, yes, indeed, I had been to jail for 14 days. And then she briefly said, "Oh, well, why didn't you tell me?" And I said, "Well, I didn't tell you because this is the reaction I would get." And it all became something that was probably more about, what will people think? What will the town think? Very snobby, that was my Mum, She was wonderful. She had a very caring element, but a lot of it was very self-obsessed, My Mum was a very vain person. She would spend 2 hours putting her makeup on, and lovely woman, but maybe not the best mother. That's a horrible thing to say, maybe I'm not the best son. We've all got faults. I'm not the best son, that's for sure. So I'm back home. We're going out to bingo now and again because Mum's still gambling. I'm still gambling. I'm on benefit. And it was my godfather, or who was, I think, my godfather. The story goes sort of, my dad was out drinking with this guy, and he asked this guy to be my godfather, and he gave me a tankard when I was younger with my name on it, and blah blah. But we would meet him at bingo, and he was surprised to see me back, and he said, "What are you doing with yourself then?" Because he was very to the point, go out and do something, get your shit together, And he actually sort of did spur me on. I did sort of think, okay, I know. And I kept saying, look, I know I've got to do something. I just don't know what yet. Okay, give me a break. I've just sort of been through this shit. and I've sort of come home to get my shit together. But what happened was I ended up going to college. I realised, right, I've had no further education because I left school, I had the business, I went to Edinburgh, shit went mental. Now I'm back home and I thought I could go to college because Thurso was a great college, and they were just starting the college period was just coming up for applications. And I thought, I love cooking, why don't I do that? So I went straight in, it happened really quickly. I went for an interview, turned up really hungover for this interview with Helen at college, and I explained I love cooking, I've got a bit of experience because I had mucked about in kitchens, and I went straight in to do the SVQ level 2, and that was fantastic. So I'd started at college, I actually started something concrete and thought things could get going, and it was nice to see people again back home. It was very odd being back home, but it felt okay. I mean, I love Thurso dearly, but there's a love-hate thing there with it. It is a really, really beautiful place. It's majestic. But, you know, if you're not comfortable in your own skin, you're not comfortable in your surroundings either. But it's a beautiful place. I better move on real quick here. So I'd started at college. Mum was being very mummy to me and very... because of her and the Henry thing, she was just treating me like a child, really, to be fair, and she'd not realised that I had matured a lot, albeit I'd fucked up a lot too, but she always spoke to you like you were a child, you know. That was her way of being a mother. She had no real true interest in my relationships. She knew that I was seeing Gary, she clearly knew I was gay, but she had no real, or I felt that she had no real interest in my happiness. That, you know, and I'd gone through, it was always me listening to her and Henry. So I moved out of the house and went to the college hostel dorms. There was tiny little rooms with other students. We all shared a shower. It was just like going to uni, you know, I suppose. This was me in my, 25 years old nearly, and it was exciting. It was great. Met old friends, met new friends, Tony, Jamie, I could name so many names, great. Problem was I was really sober. I was going to college and loved it. I loved it. After a year, I managed to get my SVQ2, only just though. I'd been taking a fair bit of time off college with depression, anxiety, drinking too much. I was a decent chef, and the people around me there were extremely passionate about what they were doing, and I was passionate, but again, my head was busy, you know. I was not giving it 100%. So I got my SVQ2. I then had the option to go into SVQ3. I didn't think I wanted to do that, but the college approached me and said, look, we've got an opening to do your HNC degree and we'd like you to do it. They thought I was good enough, or they had spaces. So they said, you can skip the part 3, go straight to do your HNC and get your degree. So I accepted that involved. So Scotland, they gave me a grant, a few £1,000 to help me along. I was staying... was I still staying in the hostel at that time? Maybe. I went off to Aberdeen to see a friend got married. There was a whole bunch of good things happening. Living in the hostel was not the best environment because a lot of the people were a lot bit younger than me, and they were just discovering alcohol. So, of course, I was playing along with that, and I could drink them under the table. So it wasn't doing me much good. A friend of mine, Ian, introduced me to another chap called Dave, who was wanting a lodger, and that was something I was very keen on because I wanted to get out of the hostel. And he was living in, weirdly, a house on what's called Rockwell Terrace, which is just up from my family home. So I moved in with Dave, and it was great. We got on well. Dave was a party animal too. That was fantastic. So I got my HNC course done, ongoing. I got the money come through for the degree, and then a big life-changing event happened. I decided that with some of the money, I would go down to Bournemouth. There was a big gay gathering of this community I was involved with on the internet called CAFMOS, which is sort of for people who are gay but do not feel they fit into that sort of clique, or people who are gay like me who like the older man, or the older man who prefers sort of, you know, a bit of a younger fellow, or for older men who used to be married and had realised they're gay. So it was all about that sort of supporting element. It was a non-ageist group, and I loved it. So there was this weekend coming up, and I thought, I'm going to go. So I did, and I went down for the weekend, very nervous, all the way down to Bournemouth. So this is going from one end of, you know, the top of Britain, all the way down to Bournemouth for this gay weekend. And the first night on Friday, I met a chap called Phil, and Phil came up and chatted to me and said, what kind of music are you into? And we just clicked, the mental click. We just were like, all weekend, we're inseparable, just like two little kids having the most amazing time. I didn't even want to leave Bournemouth. I wanted to stay forever, but I had to go home and finish my HNC degree, you know, which I was just barely coping with. I was having days off college, and I was committed but not fully committed to the HNC degree. I was good enough, but I wasn't putting the work in, and I was aware that there was trouble there. So this move to Bournemouth was going to be a big change for me, and I'll leave it there because that was going to be my next big move. So I'll leave it at that part at the moment.